Well, here we go. Good morning, Dima.
Hello, Rob. Hi, everyone.
Howdy, everybody on the interwebs. Okay, so if you don't already know, the energy's been kicking. It's been picking up behind the scenes, and we have been looking forward to this. Part two.
Digging deep.
We're going to dig deeper. We've got an amazing guest. We love her so much. Thank you, Dima, for bringing her to our circle. Wow. I haven't stopped thinking about some of the stuff we talked about, so let's get right into it. We've got Dr. Katrice Albert with us now.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me back for part two.
I have a feeling there's going to be part 3, 4, and 5.
I would be fine with that. I would not be upset about something like that.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too.
Totally fine. We just signed you up, Katrice. Hope the rest of your year, just playing that in with COVID is going to fit right in with all of your plans.
That's right. That's right. Just keep it going.
Oh my goodness. So how have you been? We haven't seen you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
How have you been?
So I've been really busy, having a lot of the same discussions that I had with you about 2 weeks ago about, what's going on and, at this watershed moment in American history and how we might be able to align ourselves a little bit more around inclusion and equity mindedness. So it's been really busy. I think that it's so important to have these conversations and to, bring people along who might not otherwise feel the need to have these sorts of discussions or who might be a little bit afraid. It's always hard to talk about race and inequities and, these topics aren't easy and people are very fearful that they're going to say the wrong thing. But, bringing folks along is just, I think, what is our responsibility. So it's been a busy 2 weeks.
I bet. Well, and it has been a busy 2 weeks. Dima's about to travel.
Yes.
I've been missing her. So, it's been busy for everybody, just all around. And one thing we were talking about, just to slide right in, digging deep right away, one thing we were talking about backstage was how we haven't really heard as much in the last week or so about, and you acronymed it with D&I, but diversity and inclusion, right? Just so everyone's aware of what that is. But yeah, we haven't really seen or heard as much activity. Can we talk about that for a minute? I think that's worth bringing up.
Yeah. So Rob, I think that you're right. I think that we have had a sort of a decline in the conversation. I did do an interview last week that appeared on the Upworthy page about what are the things that we might be able to do, just 4 easy steps, taking baby steps. But I think that part of what you're seeing in terms of just the decline of a lot of the content that had been produced is because there are less civil unrest. It's less civil unrest going on in American cities right now, right? So there's a reduction in protests, as well as an uptick in the number of new coronavirus cases. So our national media has now pivoted back to, the global pandemic is really still a thing. Even though cities were trying to and states were trying to slowly move through their phases of opening up, the uptick in new coronavirus cases, especially in young Americans, right? So that population 18 to 24, we're seeing an uptick in cases in that population. So I think that our national media has really pivoted back to our pandemic. That's like I said, it's still really a thing.
Yeah. Well, there's also the issues with Russia and all of this.
That's right.
It seems that a lot of topics are coming together at the same time.
That's right.
As you mentioned before we became live, is we don't want this to be another topic in the history. We need to continue. We need to continue to fuel the energy so we can keep moving forward and we see policy changes and we see organizations making a difference, putting strategies and implementing them.
I agree, Dima. I agree so much with you. And, early on, we saw companies and organizations and entities writing their statements related to, their policies and, their commitment to undo racism and to have real thoughtful sort of conversations on racial injustice and particularly anti-Black hatred. And so those were the statements, right? Those were just sort of, putting these statements out into the universe. And now it's the time to really work to surround those statements with objectivable, objectives and goals and a strategic plan and a vision for what that really looks like.
Yeah. Yes.
We have to hold people accountable, right? So we got to go back to those statements, right? And then
where have you been?
make sure that going forward that we actually see them doing the heavy lifting around, changing their policies or implementing new innovative strategies that they suggested that they would do, in those lovely statements that were made.
Yeah.
Yep. Good point. And I had we had a guest earlier this week, LeVar Robinson, and one of the things that we wound up getting to talk about in a side session with our friend Orhan McMillan in Mindfulness Living was the accountability piece missing. And we were really trying to talk around some of these issues, and the accountability piece is a big part. It's definitely a big part. And then, we even went so far as to talk about verbiage, like the words. So we've heard the word prejudice before, but what's the difference between being prejudiced and being racist? And I found that to be fascinating because I haven't heard the word, and I thought about it. I said, I haven't heard the word prejudice since early mid 90s.
Yeah. I think
I haven't really heard that.
Sure. Well, I think all of these topics are so relevant. We've got to make sure that they stay in the lexicon. So let me try the first one about accountability. So many companies will have diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. And most folks like me who are diversity professionals sometimes have a harder time being able to capture those who have responsibility and those who have power to actually be accountable, right?
Power was the other word. And I didn't really sink in that that's really what made the difference. Because you can hold those feelings wherever you are as a person, but it's what you do with it in your own extension, that's what really hit it. And I'm so... Please go. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. You have the passion around this, and I love it.
I think you were probably spying on our talks is really what was going on.
Yeah. So, what we need are these key decision makers to be able to be accountable. And, here's the thing, Rob, I think that you have seen all sorts of memes that have cropped up, in the last 30 days, the last 45 days around what racism is, what racial injustice is. And then to be able to say when these types of things happen in companies, people aren't hired, right? Qualified people don't get jobs, or they don't get the job promotion.
Yeah.
Or there are policies that continue to have barriers. So people in power have to be accountable to dismantling sort of these, either their unconscious bias or their conscious bias that they have, right? And the ways in which they are being able to support, to champion, to make sure that diverse top talent gets access. So when you hear these concepts about prejudice and racism and conscious and unconscious bias, it is all tied to power. Those people who have decision-making power, the power of the pen, the ability to pull the trigger, to say yes to a person who's applied for a job, to say yes to someone who deserves a promotion. It's all tied to, these key concepts, but you're absolutely right. It's the power. And then how are you being accountable to someone else that you are, making sure that everyone has equity in terms of being able to be successful.
Yeah. So equity is such an important topic. And as you're talking about this. I agree about the power and how it is linked to the unconscious bias and everything that is limiting us from creating a more diverse and inclusive environment.
Yes.
But a lot of people they struggle with equity, like
yes.
So let's talk about that and what does that mean from a perspective of influencing an executive to buy into it?
Yeah. So people often think that equality and equity are interchangeable. And, you know, in diversity and inclusion work, we did have a commitment to equality, right? In terms of human rights, people deserve to have, you know, all of the same liberties and freedoms as the next person. So when we talk about the human rights struggle, no matter what that might look like in terms of race or gender or LGBTQ, we think about human rights and equality, the ability to be able to be married, just to be able to marry the person that you love, right? So that has been sort of the, you know, entree into, now we really need to discuss equity. And so, you know, the difference between those two is, you know, everybody being able to have the very same thing. So we always talk about, quote, a level playing field, everybody sort of starting at the starting blocks at the same time. But equity is, if we want to give people access and opportunity, we want to give them what they need to be successful. And oftentimes it's not the same thing. So many of you may have, you know, many of the folks in the audience may have seen, you know, this picture of these three boys trying to see a baseball game over the fence in their neighborhood, right? And so equality is, and they're all different heights. So we're just making an assumption that they're different ages, and they could be brothers, right? My three sons. And so the photograph has every one of the boys standing on a box, right? So of course the older, taller son can actually see. The middle son can see just a little bit, and then the youngest person, the youngest son, is just his eyes are just right over the top of the fence. Equity is giving the more boxes to the person who's the shortest, so that they all see the baseball game well.
Yeah. Here we go. Here's Rob.
Rob, you're so good.
Go technology.
Yes, go technology. And so this is a great visual that I absolutely adore, because it's very easy to see. What we're going to do is we're going to give people what they need in order to be successful. Coming out of higher education, you know, I believe in making sure that access and opportunity for higher education is given to all, right? Because we know that education can be the great equalizer, especially when it comes to income, right? And potential earned income. You get to college, and some people are 5 generations at the same university. They've been on that campus all their lives. And then, you know, first generation students have never been to the campus before. So they don't have all of the roadmaps of success. You've got to give people what they need. And so while I, of course, believe in equality, right, Dima, right, Rob, I believe in equality. I really am a passion, future-focused freedom fighter related to equity, giving people what they need to be successful.
It's so crazy how just the vernacular can mean such a huge difference, because I would think they're interchangeable. I'm being honest, before the meme, because as soon as you said it, I knew exactly. That's why I went to the keyboard, right? I knew what it was, and I was like, got to find this, got to prove the point. So yeah, and what's funny was, I'm looking at this date. The date on this is January 13th, 2016. So it's not like this is a new concept.
It's not new.
But it's weird how in 2020, I'm just now gaining the actual knowledge and information around it to know the difference. And it's funny how this meme makes it so clear.
Yes.
But I can see how people would get kind of butthurt and please excuse that vernacular, but people get kind of upset and butthurt about using equity over equality. So I think maybe without an awareness of what is there, you're probably going to be pushing for equality when really just a slight change of the hand, just a slight manipulation makes it equitable for everybody. And I'm glad you mentioned that. And we need to go back to the starting blocks example, because you said everyone's starting off at the, everyone's starting off at the same line, but that's not
the truth. Right? Even if we just use my example about higher education and, people who have been on a college campus and been given the roadmap their entire lives. And, my mother was a faculty member at Southern University. I grew up on the campus. It was never not something that I ever considered that I would not go to college. But some of my first generation college students said to me early on in my relationship with them, there were just not people in my household that talked about going to college.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so our incoming class, they're not always starting right at the same, level in terms of starting at the starting blocks. And I think, when we talk about digging deeper and really being appreciative of what equity means, and as you talked about, some people resist this for all sorts of reasons. It's about whether or not we're able to be empathetic with someone who needs something different, right? I have writing partners. So the books that I've penned are, it's just not me alone, right? Because we get nowhere by ourselves. And I believe in minds like ours. Like the brain power is just better together. And I can remember our Trayvon Martin book being due to be edited right as I was leaving LSU and going to the University of Minnesota. And my writing partner, I said, oh my God, I have a house to pack. I got to move to the Bold North. I got to start a new job and I got to help edit this book. And he said, you know what? You go now. You go now. I'll handle it. When you get there, then you can pick up. And what he said to me is, that's the reason why we're in this partnership together. Yes. Right now, you need something different. I need to be carrying the water for you. Later on, I might have something really significant to do and you help me. That's empathy, right?
Well, and I don't mean to make it a cliche, but I'm looking at equity and I'm looking at the meme again over here on my other monitor, and I'm thinking it's not, I mean, I don't want to simplify it, but it's not too different than teamwork. So if you're saying that, right? So it seems much more personal. It's definitely much more personal.
Yeah, and I think when we put the concept around race and gender and LGBTQ and other demographics where it is very personal, it is very nuanced. Our biases are risen to the top, and we have to be able to, try to manage all the things that we've been taught, as well as the things that we know better and that we've experienced, to be able to say, I want to have a little bit of empathy here. I want to have a little bit of understanding and a little bit of compassion. I think that's intercultural competence, right? To learn and to become aware that we're not all starting at the starting blocks with all the same things. And it's okay to have differential needs. And if we all want to understand that we're so much better together, we're going to make sure that folks have what they need to succeed. But I think where we get into the screaming matches and just being all around jacklegs with each other is because sometimes people feel like, oh, well, that's just a handout. Oh, they're being given something that they don't deserve. Oh, well, I pulled myself up by my own bootstraps. I got here. We get nowhere alone, right? And that's a hard concept for some folks to understand. You might not consciously know all of the things that people did for you, but as I am always talking about gratitude, I think about my grandparents and my parents pooling resources together to be able to send me to Catholic school in New Roads. My parents couldn't hump that tuition alone.
Yeah.
So it was 6 people, 3 sets of people who loved me unconditionally. who pulled these resources together. Why? Because my parents were young.
Well, look, there's equity there too, right? Because they were pulling away from their families to help. So that is almost like a pure example of equity right there, just right in front of your face.
That's right. They all wanted me to have a Catholic education, to understand, the tenets of Catholicism, as well as have a good, college-ready education. And they pulled those resources together, right? Because my parents just didn't have it as young parents. It's hard to try to make all the ends meet as a young couple. So I think that when we sort of bang and clash and bang heads together about, handouts, in air quotes, or giving people something that they don't deserve, it's harder to come to the definition of equity. But when people experience it, right, we got to sort of get away from, I have to walk in the shoes of someone in order to understand it. Empathy comes from just having a perspective that this is this person's lived experience, and I need to be respectful of it. It's not how I perceive it. It is, just appreciating a lived experience of somebody else.
Yeah. So, Katrice, I like everything you said. I like the example about your life, how your family chipped in together. I also like the example you gave about universities. What I struggle with is in the corporate world.
Sure.
So if somebody is getting the extra box, and to create an environment that is equitable. And let's say the promotion cycle is coming, the raise cycle is coming. A lot of people would say, oh, this person got promoted because of the diversity. This person got hired just because of diversity. And that creates a lot of first resistance to understanding the value of D&I, but also the way they treat that individual.
That's right.
What is your thought in terms of the corporate world?
Sure.
Raise, succession planning, hiring, all of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that, these corporations who put out these lovely messages about a month ago, right, about their commitment to inclusion, their commitment to equity, their commitment to thinking about, creating more inclusive environments in their corporate settings, have to think about the hiring process and being committed to perpetuating inclusion. And they have to do that by the ways in which they do diversity in hiring. Now, most often, Dima, I think folks who want to resist the elevation of people of color and women in the corporate setting is the way to be able to have a defense mechanism that I didn't get this job promotion because they were very busy giving it to Katrice Albert because she's a Black woman. Yeah. Right. So number one, it's a defense mechanism that I'm not getting something because she's getting something, extra. I think that when we think about the clearly about diversity in hiring practices, we know that I'm going to bring something to the table that's a little bit different and that I've earned everything that I've ever gotten, right? Because as a person of color, as a woman, the scholars call that double jeopardy, right? A two minority person. So what am I going to have to do? I'm going to do what my parents told me to do. You're going to work twice as hard in order to be recognized one half as much. Yeah. So those folks who say, oh, well, she just got that job promotion because she's a Black woman. Well, no, there are a few things that are happening here. I'm working twice as hard as you only to be recognized, half as much. And if my company is committed to succession planning and creating, an inclusive environment, they're going to be very strategic at number one, representation. So that's the numbers game, right? Looking around to make sure that there's a representation of, all of the demographics that the company serves. And then number two, the climate. So a more diverse climate brings, a more engaged experience. So what we know for sure in D&I work, there's lots of data on this. Diverse teams come out with better outcomes in terms of performance on every metric. You know why? Because it's not all the same people just sitting around trying to figure something out and saying, oh, yeah, that's right. No, diversity in the team means you're going to have diversity in the perspective. And so every metric, efficiency, more money, better outcomes on whatever quality controls you have. That's because diverse teams come up with better, answers. And then there's more than one right answer, right? So it's not always easy because we just have such a politicized way of thinking about diversity and hiring practices, because the words affirmative action have been so tainted with she just got that job because she's a Black woman.
Yeah. I hear it all the time. Less qualified person got the job, and
Yeah. Now, and I'll tell you, I'm not gonna be Pollyanna here. I'm not gonna tell you that there aren't companies that unconsciously just hire for diversity just to be able to check that box.
Yeah.
Which makes it harder, right? Which makes it harder. The person really doesn't know the role, right? The person really isn't that qualified for the role. I'm not going to be Pollyanna and not say that doesn't happen. But the majority of people who hire for diverse top talent, you're going to hire for the talent first because you don't want your company to fail.
Yeah.
Like, and by the way, this person just happens to be diverse. I don't know if you all saw on yesterday that Robin Roberts interviewed Erica James, right? Is that her last name? Dean James at the Wharton School, the first African-American dean of the Wharton School ever in the history of that business school. What she said with Robin Roberts was, I got a lot of work to do, and it's my first day, and my first objective is to make sure that the Wharton School stays the top business school in the country. Oh, and by the way, yes, I am diverse top talent, and women of color, especially girls of color, can see that they can be a dean, of the most powerful, business school ever. I mean, I just think that it's remarkable.
Yeah.
I saw that. And look, we kind of glanced over it a little bit, but I mean, someone was featured on an Upworthy article. You did mention that.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of cool. But kind of cool is it's amazing. Let's just say that was incredible when I saw that come across.
Yes.
But wow, you had some powerful stuff in here.
Yeah.
And, what is so mesmerizing about you, Katrice, is that you say it with such clarity. It's so clear when you explain these topics, these really difficult, there's obstacles surrounding them. There's a lot of white noise. You make it so simple and clear to understand. That's why when I see leaders like that, I am just, in awe of your abilities. But you make this so simple. You brought this down into, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Is that your video?
Summer school starting. But on this topic, you said 4 concrete things that everyone can do to dismantle racism. And so your 4 things here, so simple. Yeah. And it starts with yourself. It says manage yourself.
Yes. Just
create some self-awareness and commit. That is powerful. Step 1. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then let me go through a few more, and I want you to kind of talk about this because it was so simple the way you broke this down. Manage yourself, commit to some self-awareness, manage your immediate sphere of influence. So those people that are around you, your household, family, friends, spouse, children, your immediate circle, so important. And then wield your power. So this is when the power comes up, and I'm getting goosebumps right now. So wield your power, and if you have the decision-making power at your job, I mean, obviously that comes with some responsibility there. And then so exercise compassion. These are not groundbreaking steps towards dismantling something so complex.
Yeah.
is what you should be doing every day of your life.
Yeah.
But holy cow. So please explain where your mindset was on this. You know, talk about this article, talk about this Upworthy experience, and tell us about these 4 key points that are so radical yet so simple.
Yeah. Well, Rob, thank you so much for the compliments. I got to keep you in my life.
They're all true.
I think you got him for the rest of your life. He's not going to go away.
I know, you're good with my ego. So I have to say this, you know, first off, I've been 25 years in the game, right? So I've had my own journey with thinking about these issues, with writing about these issues. I'll have to admit, Harmony Hobbs is a rock star author, right? She's a rock star freelance writer who helped, you know, in the interview, she was actually helping me to sort of simplify this so people could digest it. So, you know, I talk in academic speak all the time. And then I'm like, okay, they didn't understand what I'm saying. Let me try this again. So
I understood.
She was able to help me be thoughtful and use metaphors that people can actually understand. So I will tell you that some of my friends from high school will say they could see the progression because I wasn't always this compassionate. I wasn't always this nice when talking about that's I mean, I think that we have to be clear in that this is a journey and we've got to meet people where they are, right? And so I do think that it can be simplified because when you talk about race, when you talk about racial injustice, when you talk about inequities, people are fearful, they're scared, they don't want to mess up. And it's also very overwhelming. So people, you know, think, oh my God, what can I do? I feel so helpless because this is such a big thing. And, you know, we've all heard the, you know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so managing yourself, becoming much more self-aware, you know, reading books, reading articles like the Upworthy article that was only 4 minutes. It was only a 4-minute read, right? 1 minute per concrete step.
4 minutes to last a lifetime then. Like really.
Yeah.
Right. So how can you manage yourself? How can you commit? You know, this is everybody's everyday work to do better, to be stronger together. How can you manage your household, right? When managing your household or your sphere of influence, the people that you influence, how do you train up anti-racist feminist children?
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that look like, right? Dima, you talked about your nephews.
Yeah.
These books about these powerful, you know, Black women like Ella Baker. You know, it's about getting, you know, the sphere of influence can be as small as you want, but you're actually imparting knowledge on other people. Make sure that young people that are in your influence vote. You know, think the easy things to do. But the wielding your power is really important. And I call people that have decision-making power waymakers. And I want our waymakers to, you know, advocate and champion and mentor young people who are not their mirror images, to go to be, you know, on the front line to say, I am going to be specific in the ways in which I mentor, even to just change my industry. When you look around, you know, architecture, that's an industry that's very hard to attract women and people of color. Why not every architect commit to mentoring one young person? Because you got to start that early.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That hit home in literally in one of the first few mindfulness living events that we did with Orhan.
Yeah.
There, one of the guys in there, absolutely. He was having a problem. He had the degree. You know, he was a teacher in the meantime, but that's what he had his degree in architecture, and that's what he wanted to do. But the opportunities just were not there.
Right.
I mean, wow. And that's not something you think. You wouldn't think that.
And it's so many industries just like that. But some of these industries, you have to start so early with trying to convince young people. You know, I don't know. Did we talk about the fact that I wanted to be an arts administrator at the last time. It's a great example. I don't live my life in regret. It's because life is too short. So I don't regret anything. But if I did, I would regret not knowing that arts administration was actually a career. I didn't see people being arts administrators in my community, in my church. We didn't talk about arts administration in high school as a job. And then I got out into the world and I love Broadway. And I'm like, you could actually tie these two things together, because I don't think I had the talent to sing and dance. You could actually marry a passion for something with, an administrator mind, right? So I regret, if I lived in regret, but I don't. I would regret not being an arts administrator, because it just was not naturally occurring. So when we think about access, when we think about equity, if we're mentoring young people who aren't in our own community, it's to be able to bring them to other, things that they might have a passion around. So of course now I get that itch, scratched, because I'm a board of trustees member at a theater and I donate to the arts, and I always make sure I'm connected in some kind of way. But I think that our way makers have to do a better job of saying, it's on me. It's on me right now to do something. And what can I do? I can champion, I can advocate, I can sponsor, I can mentor. And it's really, I'm going to do that with a person who is not my mirror image, because your best friend's son is going to be out on the golf course with y'all. So that's just it. The mentoring is just happening, right? The mentoring is just sort of naturally occurring with your best friend's son. It's the person who's a waymaker that focuses in on, I'm going to be anti-racist and I'm going to understand how to dismantle racism and sexism by being a waymaker and mentoring people, or thinking about how we do specific hiring practices that involve inclusive excellence.
I like the example you gave about being on the golf course with your friend and you got the 12-year-old. All of these real world examples I can sink my teeth into. And one of the things that kind of comes up there is I heard recently that a lot of the lessons we get in life, right? They're not taught, they're caught. And I remember hearing that, and it hit me so hard, because it's not just about what you're saying, it's about what you're doing, what you've done. It's a lot about the reputation or the momentum you're bringing forward with that. And you just so happen to catch it at the right moment that it sinks in and it makes a lasting impact.
That's right.
So we can teach and teach and teach, but it's so interesting how a lot of that stuff is, you need to be working with all four of these pillars here: managing yourself in the media sphere and wielding your power and exercising compassion, because you never know when someone else is going to catch on your actions and what you're doing and the example that you're setting. So I love that you say that, because I'm out playing golf. It's, I'm having fun. I'm drinking a few beers, probably with the guys. Right. And that's a different sphere. Yeah. And I can manage and wield my power and exercise compassion on that golf course with everyone that's around me, playing with me, and the person that's in the cart that is still developing those opinions. I love that you said that. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. I think those little examples that are so clear might like sink in somewhere.
That's right. Yeah. And the lessons being caught, it's also that people are always watching us. Right? People are always watching us. If
they're watching us, where's this accountability piece we're talking about? Like, where is that? If they're watching us, are we just too afraid to call people out? Or is it that that's not appropriate? Should we be exercising compassion? I mean, like, if there's millions of cameras, everybody's watching, but where is this accountability that we haven't really moved the needle in a significant amount in such a long time? I mean, where is that? Where do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I do believe that we're situated in a system.
Yeah.
Not everyone is going to get, popped on the knuckles, right? There's not always consequences for behaviors that would, be, disruptive to a group of folks, right?
Look how easy that was for me to forget that. I'm just saying that out loud.
Yeah.
I could have answered you're right. You're absolutely, it's too deep. We're going deep. It's deeper than that.
Sure. My brother took what is classically trained as a pianist, and he plays the upright bass. So he came to my parents when they had a little bit more resources. Right. So he's the younger sibling. And I can always remember him talking about Miss Giss, his piano teacher, with these paint stirrers, right? The little flat, wooden paint stirrers for those knuckles. Not everyone is getting, their knuckles wrapped on with the paint stirrer when they're not being equitable. So that accountability piece is really, really something that's serious. I know that, Dima asked the question about what about corporate America? Well, here's the thing. People respond to carrots and to sticks. They respond to carrots and to sticks. So if there is an evaluative process, right, for your promotion or your pay raise, and there is an accountability piece around how you are contributing to the diversity of the company and to the climate, so that people who bring all the demographics to the table feel like they can be engaged and they can have success, all of a sudden we figure out how to hire diverse top talent. We figure out how to coach them. We figure out how to get them to their next big adventure, because guess what? There's an accountability structure in place that is either a carrot, you're going to get promoted, or you're going to get that pay raise, or the stick, which is you're not. So all of a sudden we figure out how to do this. Yeah.
I love the carrot and the stick. I gave a presentation this week about D&I.
Yes.
And I was talking about the same thing. So when you said it, I'm like, I love it. Because the carrot also is the benefit to the organization, which you mentioned. It is increasing efficiency, employee engagement. They tend to do so much better with the bottom line. But the stick is losing clients, losing employees. The millennials are amazing.
That's
and Gen Z, they want the diversity. They cannot survive in an environment that everybody looks the same.
That's right.
I think they're coming with a major new wave that is gonna drive more change for us.
Yeah, and I think healthy work environments. Think about it. We have more than 4 generations in the workplace today, more than 40, right? Some workplaces have more than 4 generations, and we all come at work problems and challenges differently. But I'll just give you an example that my previous assistant was on the cusp of a millennial and Z, right? She's right on the line of a millennial Z. And while I am, I think, what am I? Gen X? I'm Gen X. But I think and I behave like a boomer. So I think that I behave like my parents. So we are actually further apart. We're closer in age, but we're further apart in the ways in which we think about work. And she wanted me to go paperless. And I'm like,
as long as you do tax documents.
This is not where I thought the conversation was going.
This is not going to work. This is not going to work. And then I would send her in the office. I'm traveling or whatever. I'd send her in the office. I'm like, okay, you have to go to the 3rd stack, about halfway down. There's a red little folder. In that folder is a Post-it note with a phone number and a name. I need that. She's like, how do you even remember where this is?
Oh my goodness.
I love you so much.
I need her with all of the technology, with being able to, get on like these Zoom meetings and, all of this stuff needing to be electronic, right? And so there was something, I don't know what, I can't remember the exact experience that happened, but the fact that I had the paper copy, I was able to show her, and I said, do you see why old school sometimes works? So it's blending all of the best
I love you. That was such a great example.
I think Rob needs a minute to breathe. Please, Rob, breathe.
Oh my God. I said, here's the thing. This is
I'm using the keyboard to cool off.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, but when you have these sort of mindsets that are able to blend together, and there's just a level of respect. I mean, I respect her so much and her way of thinking and the ways in which she helps me be more efficient. But then I always have the receipt. I'm gonna always have the receipt. You'll never get over on me because I'm gonna always have the receipt, right? The paper copy.
That is so. I mentioned earlier, as long as you don't fax documents still, you're okay. I did a training for a government agency.
She won't let me do that.
In Louisiana, they have like 43 faxes that they still maintain every single year.
Yeah. Right. But I think that it does, and it does speak to just having higher levels of respect, and the millennials expecting, a different type of work environment, right? Yeah. They want much more flexibility. The ways in which they work is a different way of being, and they're going to expect that it's a diverse work environment. And so, my hope is that they're appreciative of like the people who are like me, who might happen to be closer to their age and look young and vibrant, but I really think like a boomer, right? I'm like this dogged work ethic. Let's go. And that they can appreciate, being a part of a diverse work team, because the outcomes are always so better. They're so much better when it's a diverse work team.
Yeah, it is. It is. I want to go back to a conversation we had earlier related to the importance of the executive buy-in.
Yeah.
And, So when you meet with the executives to talk to them about the importance of D&I, and somehow they are still from the old school, they're resisting to it, they don't see the value, what do you do?
Yeah. So we have to know that in this work, we're always going to have resistors, right? So people resist having to change because change is hard, right? So that's just a fact that we know. When people want change as long as everything stays the same.
Yeah.
Yes. I've never heard it said like that.
Yeah. People want change as long as it stays the exact same. And so the leaders have to understand that, Dave Ulrich is a big HR guru who I really appreciate. And he talks about internal and external engagement helping to lead and shape change. Right. So the internal engagement, the external engagement. So your internal employees, right? The folks who are helping you get to success. And then the products that you are, working towards for your customer base. You've got to have engagement on both sides. You can't do that without a commitment to inclusive excellence.
Yeah.
It just won't work. Not in today's economy. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that is the only way to be able to lead and shape culture, the culture that you want to project from your company. So not just the statement, right? Not just the statement from 30 days ago, but actual output from statements that are, more robust and it's like a covenant with their customer base. But also people have spending power. So think about the brands that have been flying high, right? Big brand, wonderful brand. And then the minute that something happens where there is some sort of big, experience, oftentimes racial, oftentimes very racial, think about how that brand just plummets because people have spending power. So you not only want to be able to have the leader or the waymaker understand when you have a diverse workforce and a diverse population, you get better engagement, you get better outcomes on every metric. And sometimes really, Dima, I'm always in the majority of my career, I'm always working with people who had come from the STEM backgrounds, right? So science, technology, engineering, and math. They often are the leaders of, big, powerful places, higher ed, associations, companies, they need to see data. So I just can't sort of go about the business of saying people, companies come through with better metrics on when they have diverse teams. I got to show them the data, right? So I have to have the power behind the words of showing them, look, the data suggests we come out with better outcomes on every metric that you want to evaluate when you have diversity on the teams. And as a leader, you don't want, the folks who are all around you to be just like you, thinking like you, looking like you, being a bobblehead. Some people just have these bobbleheads around them. And, it's just, here's the thing. You're just saying yes for the fact that he or she is the leader. Because they're the leader, you're saying yes. And oftentimes, you want a dissenting voice. You want people with different lived experiences to say, you know what, if we go down this path, let me tell you some of the unintended consequences that we're going to have.
Yeah.
So it's not only leaders having the ability to hear, you have to reduce your fear and your resistance of difference because you think that it's going to be messy, because it is. You hire someone like Katrice Albert on your team, I'm going to think through down the path. Okay, I think that this is what I'm hearing here. And let me just give you a couple of consequences that we might be able to expect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I'm not always popular.
Well, there's another element to it too. So when you are in a leadership role, you're going to inspire younger women. You're going to inspire women of color. So that's going to generate more people that look like you.
That's right.
And some organizations, they have resistance to that. So they're like, okay, one person is enough, but now you're inspiring and you're driving change.
Yes.
By you being there.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And so and you know what, that is such a powerful statement, Dima. And I think throughout my entire career, even when I was very young in my career, that was just a part of just being in the milieu and having young people see me in roles for them to be able to visualize, right? Because, the 100 Black men of America, they say you can't be what you can't see. So there is what is known in psychology as vicarious learning. If I can see you doing this, I can think to myself, well, good golly, I can do this too. So vicarious learning is just being able to see someone in a role that you might be able to do this as well. And so that is, I think, what is considered a sort of a ripple effect of the pleasure and the passion around doing this kind of work, is that, I know I'm on stages, national stages, and people come up to me afterwards and they're like, oh my God, Katrice Albert, I too can do this. I'm like, of course you can. It's not going to be an easy road, but of course you can. So I think that's also a benefit that, leaders have to understand. When you're hiring top talent that just happens to be diverse, you're inspiring the next generation of leaders.
That's an amazing point.
Yeah.
And I hope that's something people can sink their teeth into, because that really, I love how you said basically what you see, you can emulate.
That's
right. And you also I learned so much from you, so much. But the vicarious learning, that's a lot of where I'm at today, is seeing other people do something, and I think I can do it too because I have a certain set of skills or a mindset or work ethic, and I go and do it.
That's right. So, that's right.
But if no one shows me that's possible, think about all the barriers and obstacles there. You got your own personal confidence, you've got external barriers, you've got societal, you've got and systemic now, like we're finally exposing, right? So all of that, to overcome that, to just see someone in a place doing something, that's huge.
Yes. Listen, when I was at LSU, I was a season ticket holder for Lady Tiger basketball.
Go Lady Tigers. I came to watch at LSU, period.
I came to the sport because of the Tigers, and I would just my heart would just swell when there were men in the stands with their sons. Yes. And their sons had on Lady Tiger gear, right? So it was being able to have vicarious learning that women too are excellent athletes. And you know what that also means? They're seeing that women are leaders on the floor, so that, you know, it's things go into your unconscious. When he has a woman boss, guess what he's gonna remember? He's gonna remember Tamika Johnson being the floor general, right? And I'm dating myself. But you know,
Keisha James, favorite player of all time, Keisha James.
Right. That's
my girl.
That's right. So, I mean, I do believe that, you know, we have to be able to demonstrate and showcase to others what leadership looks like. I'll tell you, my mother is a retired chemist, right? And when the book, and she taught at Southern in the chemistry department for 42 years, when the book Hidden Figures came out, right, I had an opportunity to introduce Margot Shetterly, who wrote Hidden Figures.
Oh, and wow.
My career. And in the framing remarks, I talked about just having the stereotype in my head about what a scientist looked like.
Yeah.
And guess what? A scientist was the person who came home every day and made sure that my homework was done, and she cooked my dinner, but she was a scientist. And so we've got to be able to see these remarkable leaders in all kinds of packages so that we know that leadership is afforded to us.
Yes.
Yes. And leadership comes in. Well, you know, this brings up a great question. So I was asked this week to maybe help out with something called the Louisiana Youth Seminar. Okay? And it's LYS, and always wanted to be a part of it. Never asked until just now. But so now I can at 40 years old. But there's something that a friend of mine, Sam Pruitt, asked me if I could get some leaders to maybe give me their take on why leadership is essential.
Yes. Yes.
So can you tie that in? And Dima, can you answer too, so we can kind of get this in a full package here?
Sure. So why is leadership essential, especially for young people? So yes. And so it's Louisiana Youth Leadership.
Louisiana Youth Seminar. Yeah, the whole seminar, that whole week is all about youth leadership.
Yes, yes. So this is, I mean, I think it's wonderful that we're trying to demonstrate to young people that leadership happens early, right? And leadership can be taught. These are all competencies that can be taught and can be expected, right? So my mother always says to me, I think that you came here like an adult person.
You're 5. Yeah, I
agreed. With your receipt. You
I'm just sticky note.
That's right. But here's the thing: with young people, we want them to understand that leadership is available to them, and being a leader looks like all kinds of things. And so we want to encourage, you know, whatever that actually looks like in someone. I mean, and you know, young people are trying to develop, they're trying to come into themselves, you're trying to get their identity wrapped around something. And I think it's so important that young people understand leadership comes in all kinds of ways, but some of the competencies is that you're going to be able to actively listen to someone else, right? You're going to be able to work in a group, right? You're going to pull the weight. Just like my writing partner, when somebody else can't do it right now, you're going to pull the weight, but you're going to also expect when you can't do something that you're going to hand off, right? You're going to hand off, and you're going to be trustworthy, right? You're going to have integrity, because people will know that you have done the right thing even when they're not watching. So I think that there's so many concepts that, you know, that leaders should demonstrate to young people. And I guess I'll stop there so Dima can chime in too.
I wish I have time. I actually have a client meeting that I'm a minute late to. It was wonderful, Katrice. We absolutely love you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're such a blessing.
Grade through 5 coming up.
I have to run.
All right, bye.
Oh my goodness, Katrice, that was incredible. So there you have it, everybody. What a great show! Amazing. I learned so much, and I hope you did too. I've got to ask you. Let's continue the dialogue. Let's exercise that compassion. Let's wield our power within those inner spheres, like she mentioned, and let's all just try to be like Katrice Albert. Oh man, thank you so much, everybody who's joined today. Really appreciate it, and we appreciate your support too. So thank you for engaging. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting on our page and our posts. This really means a lot. And if you have someone that you would like to have on the show, by all means, shoot us a recommendation. We are game. So that's it for today's show. We appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for joining in, and have an amazing day, and also a happy 4th of July. Stay safe, everybody. Mask up.